The 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup season brought the re-emergence of the dominant Chevrolet Monte Carlo, the return of one of the sport's great heroes, and a points battle between a young buck and the stern old champion that went down to the final race. You'll see it all here on the 1995 NASCAR Year in Review. Hello, everybody. I'm Eli Gold. Welcome to the 1995 NASCAR Year in Review. And boy, what a racing season it was. The on-track competition was outstanding, and it all began right here back in February at Daytona International Speedway. But even before they dropped the very first green flag, the story of the year was the return of the Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Remember in 1994, the Monte Carlo's predecessor, the Chevy Lumina, won only 11 races. The Fords won 20 times. Well, after 3 years on the drawing board and 1 year of on-track testing, the Chevrolet engineers were confident that their brand new downforce package would prove to be downright unbeatable. The big story of the 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup preseason, the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, the revitalization of an old warhorse for the Bowtie Brigade. The first glimpse of the 95 version comes at Talladega, where a couple of Chevy teams come for early season testing in January.
I guess we've been working on the car now a little over 2 years. You know, Neil Bonnet did the very first test for us up in Michigan a couple of years ago, and we seen then the car had some potential, but there's been a lot of work and a lot of man hours put into it.
They've been working on a long time, and it's finally coming out. Last year, we kind of hoped we could get it out, but they just waited this year to break it out. And like I said, I think it'll be a good race car for us, and we'll just see what happens.
Meanwhile, in much warmer Daytona, the headline story is the Robert Yates Ford piloted by Dale Jarrett. By far the fastest Ford in both test sessions at the World Center of Racing. Jarrett is the early favorite to win the pole for the Daytona 500.
It's been a lot of fun knowing that you're the fastest, and I know that Robert and Larry haven't done anything that's out of the ordinary or something that we can't do here when we come back. So, the speeds normally are a little bit slower when you come back anyway after the 24-hour and all of that, but I believe we can still handle it.
But another story looms over the 28 car, as Ernie Irvan remains a big part of the team. So how does the relationship of Irvan, the consultant, and Jarrett, the driver, work out?
Ernie understands the situation. He wants us to go out and win races. Awful tough situation, but he wants us to win races and for our car to be there when he does get back. And, sometime later this year, Ernie may be racing Dale to the victory. That wouldn't be bad. We'll figure out how to handle that, and I hope that could happen later this year.
Despite Jarrett dominating the top of the speed charts throughout testing and several Monte Carlos being awfully close, it's the Pontiac of Michael Waltrip that surprises everyone with his winter best run of 192.802 miles an hour.
We've been fast in preseason testing a couple times before and couldn't really repeat it, but this is a strong team here, and we check and double check ourselves, and we feel like that's pretty legit.
Michael's speed is good enough to beat out Dale Jarrett by 0.3 of a second. Joe Nemechek, Sterling Marlin, and Darrell Waltrip round out the fastest 5 in overall winter testing results. With all of the preseason Monte Carlo hype behind them, the teams return to Daytona International Speedway for Speed Weeks 1995. It was Dale Jarrett the fastest, Dale Earnhardt the master, trying to win his first Daytona 500 in 17 career starts. On qualifying day, they backed up their reputations. Jarrett won the Busch pole, Earnhardt starting outside of row number 1, missing the pole by 11 1/1000ths of a second. On Thursday of Speed Weeks, it was the Gatorade Twin 125 qualifying races. Earnhardt ran off with his event while Sterling Marlin won his. And that brought us to race day. The Dale and Dale show in front of a packed grandstand here at Daytona. Those two men led them to the start-finish line to begin the 1995 season. It's Dale Earnhardt who stormed out to take the early lead as Jarrett slipped back. But Sterling Marlin chose the muscle that gave him a win earlier in the week, and he gets by Earnhardt on lap 3. Marlin proves to be strong as he goes on to lead the next 26 laps until an equally strong Jeff Gordon takes over the top spot. The two swap the point back and forth until the rain starts to fall and the race is red flagged for the next hour and 45 minutes, giving some a chance to catch a little rest. When the racing resumes, things look great for Gordon as he holds the point until lap 98. This Todd Bodine spin brings out the 7th caution of the afternoon when the leaders pit. The jack fails on the 24 car, damaging the left front fender, which knocks Gordon and the DuPont team out of contention. It's also a frustrating day for Rusty Wallace. On lap 160, Randy LaJoy wrecks on the backstretch. Then as the yellow flag starts to fly and cars start to slow, Rusty gets tangled up with Bobby Hamilton. His afternoon is over with yet another disappointing Daytona finish. This time, he comes home 34th.
I can't believe it. I mean, a caution flag's out. We're coming to the caution flag, and the guy never lifts and is wide open crashing in there.
I mean, what's this, 4 in a row?
Probably about 7 or 8, it seems like. But every time I come here, I got a good car, and some idiot runs over me.
Dale Earnhardt takes over the lead after a round of pit stops and keeps it for the next 17 circuits. But quickly, Marlin shoots by Earnhardt, entering turn 3 with 19 laps to go, as Earnhardt starts to backpedal, dropping to 4th. But then, with 11 laps remaining, Bobby Labonte, running 5th at the time, spins between turns 1 and 2, bringing out the final caution. And while the rest of the leaders stay on the track, Earnhardt gambles. He comes in for 4 new tires and fuel. The stop puts Earnhardt in 14th with only 10 laps remaining, and the charge is on. After only 1 lap, the Intimidator cuts the field in half as he makes it all the way to 7th. 2 laps later, he picks off 4th. Then he knocks off Dale Jarrett for 3rd with 5 to go, and Mark Martin with 3 to go. But that's where the charge ends, as Earnhardt, new tires and all, cannot catch Sterling Marlin, who goes on to win the Daytona 500, becoming only the 3rd driver to win that prestigious event back-to-back.
I ain't never won the Daytona 500.
And you still ain't.
I ain't going to Disney World either.
He was strong, wasn't he?
Yeah, if I'd had a little help, I could have rattled him. I was better than he was through the corners, but he was better than I was down the straightaway. We put a little extra tape on there and got to run a little warm. But
Hey,
it's the Daytona 500. I ain't supposed to win the damn thing.
hey, how in the world did you come back from, where'd you start, about 12th on that restart?
I don't know, 15th or so. Bush clashing it.
You know, about 8 laps ago, he said he's coming hard, and I looked in the mirror about 5 to go, and here he was. So just hung on to it and made it here.
After a disappointing effort at Daytona, Jeff Gordon and his Rainbow Warriors rally to take the pole for the Goodwrench 500 at Rockingham. Gordon's DuPont car is strong and is rarely challenged for the top spot. But after starting 21st, Dale Earnhardt makes a run to the front as he takes the lead from Gordon on lap 84. The worst incident of the afternoon comes on lap 177, when Jimmy Hensley, in his first ride for the Active Motorsports team, takes a hard lick from Greg Sachs. Both drivers are done for the day, but both walk away. Rusty Wallace's early season bad luck continues as he goes home early with a blown engine. He finishes 24th. Meantime, no one can catch Jeff Gordon as he leads 329 of the 492 laps to collect the 3rd win of his young career, his first ever at the Rock. And because of his start first, finish first effort, Gordon picks up a $91,200 bonus from Unocal, making his total payday better than $167,000. A snowy Friday cancels all opening day activities at Richmond, but Jeff Gordon remains hot, capturing the pole on Saturday for the Pontiac Excitement 400. His stay up front doesn't last, however. Rusty Wallace takes over the top spot on lap 2 and goes on to dominate the next 97 laps. Then Gordon's problems get worse. The fuel pump on the DuPont Chevrolet goes bad. That knocks Gordon out of contention with only 60 laps completed. After starting 26th, Dale Earnhardt takes the lead on lap 99. But Rusty Wallace doesn't let the Intimidator get away as the two duel it out, swapping the lead back and forth 8 times over the next 23 laps, thrilling the sellout crowd at the Richmond Fairgrounds. Dale Jarrett's hopes for a 3rd straight top 5 finish go flat when he runs over a part of Ford Burton's exhaust system. He takes Robert Presley into the wall with him. Jarrett finishes 25th, Presley 35th. On the final caution of the afternoon, Terry Labonte wins the race off pit road with a fast stop from Gary Dehart and the boys. And that puts the Kellogg's machine out front for good as the elder Labonte shows the strength he'd been hiding all afternoon as he puts away both Earnhardt and Wallace to make it 2 straight at Richmond. With the win at Richmond, Terry Labonte leaps from 12th to 4th in NASCAR Winston Cup point standings, with Dale Earnhardt continuing to hold on to the top spot. A beautiful weekend greets the crowd at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, where the story is, again, the Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Chevy making it a clean sweep of the top 5 spots in qualifying, with Dale Earnhardt starting on the pole. It doesn't take long for the action to get going. Before Mike Wallace even takes the green flag, he gets tagged by Jeff Burton, popping the inside retaining wall, making for a very short afternoon. When the race finally gets underway, Dale Earnhardt takes the early lead, but Jeff Gordon is right on his tail. Gordon briefly takes the lead, only to have Earnhardt take it right back in typical Ironhead fashion. But on lap 63, Gordon takes the lead outright and puts a clamp on the top spot for 250 of the next 266 laps. Scary moment for Jeremy Mayfield on lap 147. He takes a hard lick from Michael Waltrip. Despite 2 mangled race cars, both drivers are okay. With Gordon running away with the show, holding a 17-second lead, leave it to his teammate Kenny Schrader to bunch up the field on lap 300 with a spin in turn 1. After pit stops, Bobby Labonte makes a big charge for Gordon's top spot, but after 13 laps of close battling, Labonte's charge falls just 1/10 of a second short as Jeff Gordon wins the Purelator 500, his second victory of 1995, making it 4 wins in 4 races for the brand new Chevrolet Monte Carlo.
This thing was on the rail. Bobby gave me a little bit of, he got me pretty nervous there at the end of the race. But, we came here to Atlanta with the same car that we raced in Rockingham. It's an awesome car. Man, we might have to take this thing everywhere.
With an off weekend on the NASCAR Winston Cup schedule following Atlanta, a couple of drivers used the free time to plot their comeback schemes. At Darlington Raceway, Ernie Irvan, 7 months removed from his horrible accident at Michigan, makes his return to the track in his Busch Grand National Series car. And he promptly goes out and sets a new track record at one of the toughest places to run on the NASCAR Winston Cup schedule.
Larry and me talked, and he said, well, where do you want to test that? I said, Darlington. And I said, because that's a hard place. And so I had a Busch car sitting here, and figured that the guys were coming down to test, and I figured I'd put this Busch car together and just be able to come down here and be able to just run nonchalant. It's not really, we're not preparing for anything. It's not that we're going racing next week, and it's just a matter of just doing some stuff. And it's been 7 months since my accident, and I'm ready to start doing some racing and ready to start doing some testing and find out what I can do.
Meantime, at an equally tough Bristol Raceway in Tennessee, it's Chuck Bown making his return after last year's accident in Pocono, Pennsylvania. After 100 laps, Bown feels he's ready. And with the Active Motorsports team behind him, he makes his comeback at Darlington. Chuck gets a bit anxious on his qualifying lap, but after a couple of loops and no contact with the wall, he's able to smile about the whole thing.
Yeah, not what I had in mind, but we had a few problems this morning in practice, and I only made about 6 laps before qualifying, and I just got a little too aggressive with it through the 4th turn there at Darlington. Tried to flat foot it through 4. I lifted in turn 3, but I tried to run it wide open in turn 4, and it just didn't quite make it. It almost did, but not quite. So we'll have to. It's not too bad, fortunately. We'll have to fix it real quick and try again tomorrow.
You got a grin on your face, though. Having fun?
Yeah, I am. I really am.
Record speeds and a new look to the track too tough to tame greets the NASCAR Winston Cup drivers at Darlington. A fresh coat of asphalt makes for a record qualifying run for Jeff Gordon, over 170 miles an hour. But the new pavement proves to be too much for certain drivers. All told, Doyle Ford is forced to bring out the caution a record 15 different times. And in some way, shape, or form, 29 of the 42 starters are involved in either a crash or a spin. Lap 27 proves to be costly for a couple of contenders, as on the restart from the third caution of the afternoon, Michael Waltrip, Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, and Bobby Labonte all get tangled up, with Wallace's car getting on top of Mark Martin's for a second. While Wallace and Martin are done for the day, the others manage to pull away.
Michael Waltrip, this is Benny Parsons up in ESPN. You read us?
Yeah, Benny.
Man, this has been some day, hasn't it?
Have you ever seen the like of stuff I've gone through?
Meanwhile, Jeff Gordon is once again the dominant car, staying out front for most of the afternoon, leading 160 of the first 190 laps. But on lap 200, trouble for the DuPont car as Randy LaJoie spins right in front of Gordon. And with no place to go, Gordon is done for the afternoon.
I don't know what happened. I just saw LaJoie spin in front of me, and man, I was like, where am I going to go? And I tried to go high and follow Bobby, and there wasn't a place to go. And if I would have gone low, I might have spun the car. Who knows? I mean, we're out of it now. It doesn't really matter.
The most serious incident of the afternoon comes on lap 217, when Rick Mast, Bobby Labonte, Dick Trickle, Lake Speed, and Jeff Burton all get together. All drivers walk away, although Bobby Labonte is the only man to sustain an injury, as he fractures his left shoulder blade, but otherwise all the drivers are okay. With only 9 men on the lead lap, the finish is settled between Dale Earnhardt and Sterling Marlin. With 12 laps remaining, Marlin gets by Earnhardt and holds off the Intimidator for the win. Sterling's first victory outside of a Daytona 500, as he wins a very bizarre Trans-South Financial 400.
You know, we've run the same as we had. I tell you, the crew's really worked hard all winter, built these new Monte Carlos and practice pit stops. They've been practicing pit stops all week. Got beat Atlanta a little bit, and they give me great pit stops, and you know, the team's pumped up and fired up, and I am too, so we're going to try to win this championship.
After Sterling Marlin's win at Darlington, the 5th consecutive for Chevy's new thoroughbred, the Monte Carlo, NASCAR mandates that one car from each camp, Chevrolet, Ford, and Pontiac, be impounded and taken for testing at both GM's and Ford's wind tunnels.
We didn't really go with any predetermined question, so we weren't searching for any predetermined answer. It was a good opportunity to take all 3 makes to the tunnel. What we'll do is just try to piece all of the information together, make sense out of it, and then take it from there. That could take us some time, though, because there's a lot of information there.
The Monte Carlo has certainly been impressive, and although some Ford drivers feel there need be some rule changes to even the score, others feel like it's simply all part of the game.
They got a lot better car than they had. We had a better car than them for a while, and now we don't have as good a car. What's the big deal? You know, that's how I feel about it. You know, what goes around comes around.
But Bristol marks the beginning of the short track season, where aerodynamics don't mean quite as much. The popular belief is that this race will be won by the best team and not necessarily by a car that has an advantage.
It's the people that make it happen. I think we've got good engine builders, good pit crew members, good fabricators, and obviously the pit stops have been good.
Here at Bristol, it won't make any difference because normally after about 20 laps there aren't any hood and fenders.
After the secret wind tunnel test, NASCAR gets what it calls parity at Bristol, where Mark Martin in a Ford qualifies on the pole, Jeff Gordon outside row number 1 in a Chevrolet, and Kyle Petty starts third in his Pontiac. It's those 3 drivers that keep the lead amongst themselves for the first 260 laps, exchanging the point 7 times. Dale Earnhardt doesn't have his usual good luck at the high banks of Bristol, as the defending points champ gets nudged by Jeff Burton while running second. It's a tough day for the former champion from there, as he limps home 25th. The most excitement of the afternoon comes on the heels of this John Andretti and Ted Musgrave incident. Ricky Craven, in an effort to avoid the wreckage, gets airborne and on top of Ken Schrader's machine. All drivers keep their cars going in the right direction and continue running. With 100 laps to go, Jeff Gordon gets by Mark Martin to take the lead for good. Gordon, never really a fan of the short tracks, tops his best finish of 17th at Bristol with a win in the Food City 500, outlasting Rusty Wallace by 6 seconds. Jeff Gordon, continuing his hot streak, captures his 4th Busch pole of 1995, this time at North Wilkesboro for the First Union 400. The Monte Carlo continues to dominate as Gordon and Dale Earnhardt run away with the show, exchanging the lead several times. The only Ford to make a real dent in the top spot is Rusty Wallace, as the Miller Genuine Draft Car leads 54 laps. A battle with the flu bug combined with the springtime heat proves to be too much for Kyle Petty. After 390 grueling laps, Kyle is forced from his Coors Light Pontiac with complete exhaustion. Kyle is pulled from the car after a great effort. But it's Dale Earnhardt who runs away with a relatively incident-free event as he dodges only 3 caution flags and the North Wilkesboro heat to collect his first win of 1995. 13.5 seconds ahead of Jeff Gordon. And yes, the Chevrolet Monte Carlo is still undefeated through 7 races.
Everything worked great, so I thank Good Wrench and Richard Childers, Spinny, Andy, all the guys at the shop. They did a great job. So finally got to victory lane. We've been close all year long. Finally got to victory lane.
With his first win of the 1995 season, Dale Earnhardt increases his lead over Sterling Marlin in the NASCAR Winston Cup point standings as we head to Martinsville, where unfortunately rain visits the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit once again, this time delaying the start of the Haynes 500 for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Once the green flag finally falls, it's Bobby Labonte who leads the field to the stripe after capturing the second Busch pole of his career. Doesn't take long for the action to get going. Lap 5, a wild incident involving 7-time champion Dale Earnhardt, Morgan Shepherd, and Terry Labonte, whose car almost flips over. Earnhardt spends 19 laps behind the pit wall making repairs and finishes a disappointing 29th. With only 183 of 500 laps completed and Rusty Wallace in the lead, the red flag falls once again for rain. This time, the delay tallies just over 2 hours. Finally, with daylight running short, the race once again gets underway at 6:02 p.m. Rusty Wallace keeps his Miller Genuine Draft Car on the point, but Ted Musgrave has the fastest car on the track. After starting 32nd, Musgrave tracks down Wallace as darkness draws near. On lap 341, this Greg Sachs spin proves to be the turning point. As Wallace goes low, Musgrave decides to go high. Both avoid the accident, but Musgrave loses some valuable ground which he would never make up, as the Haynes 500 is called due to darkness after 356 laps. Rusty Wallace picks up his first victory of the 1995 season and the first for Ford, breaking Chevrolet's 7-race chokehold on victory lane.
This Ford really ran great today, and I was real happy with it. I'm taking it easy there, and right there at the end, almost got too easy. I looked in the mirror, and Teddy was right on my rear end, so I had to step it up. The guys, I lost all the radios; they quit working, and then I heard Robin say 3 to go, and I said, "What? I can't believe we're going to end this thing this quick." But I really had a real hot ride today.
Lots at stake on our first trek to Talladega, Alabama, with Sterling Marlin being the focus. Through R.J. Reynolds and the Winston Million program, he could potentially collect upwards of $300,000 with a win in the Winston 500, the second of NASCAR Winston Cup's 4 big races. Terry Labonte leads the field to the green flag, but it's outside pole sitter Loy Allen in his return to NASCAR Winston Cup racing, who leads the first 13 laps. The race goes relatively incident-free, with the caution flag flying only twice all afternoon. Heartbreak befalls the Kodak team as Sterling Marlin's machine breaks a rocker arm, which costs them 43 laps in the garage making repairs. Things get interesting late in the race as some good luck, some misfortune, and a couple of drafting partners play big roles. After a long string of bad luck at the superspeedways, Rusty Wallace tries to reverse that trend by going an incredible 170 miles on his last tank of gas. With a 15-second cushion on the rest of the field, Wallace is only able to make it 159 miles as he drops to the apron out of gas with only 5 laps remaining. He finishes a disappointing 20th. Dale Earnhardt then assumes the point and appears to be on his way to a win, But in the tri-oval approaching the white flag, Mark Martin ducks to the inside of Earnhardt, and with the help of Chevy driver Jeff Gordon, Martin's Ford surges past Earnhardt to take the lead, bringing Gordon along with him. Then between turns 1 and 2, the draft of Morgan Shepherd and the lapped car of Dick Trickle try to get past the Intimidator. But the aerodynamic push isn't enough as Shepherd gets loose and makes contact with the GM Goodwrench Chevrolet, sending Earnhardt into the wall and out of contention. Martin then holds off Gordon as the two race back to the checkered flag as Mark Martin collects his first win of the season, making it back-to-back wins for Ford.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. With 2 to go, I thought we'd lost for sure. And, man, it was just great. Right when we caught Dale, or when the 24 caught us, we caught him just at the right time to get a big shove. And Dale was putting a block on us, but we were coming. We were going one way or the other. So it was just perfect.
What a wild scramble at the end. What happened?
Got in a wreck.
Did you get a little help up there, Dale, on that last lap?
I don't know. Watch the replay.
His 21st place finish at Talladega Superspeedway dropped Dale Earnhardt into an even draw with Jeff Gordon, each man with 1,314 points. But with more wins, 3 to Earnhardt's 1, Gordon leads the points and takes a $100,000 bonus home from the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company as the point leader 1/3 of the way through the 1995 season. Next stop for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series is beautiful Sonoma, California, just north of San Francisco in the wine country for the first road course race of the 1995 season, the Save Mart 300. It's Ricky Rudd capturing the pole. No surprise, it's his 4th Busch pole in 7 races at Sears Point. It doesn't take long, though, for Mark Martin to take the point. Martin shoots to the front on lap number 5 and clearly has the car to beat. It was a relatively incident-free event. One of the few cautions came out on the heels of this accident involving Davy Jones, Dale Jarrett, and Rusty Wallace. Jarrett's car ends up on its side and stays there for a while. Rusty Wallace, always a pre-race favorite at the road courses, suffered some damage himself. He finishes 20th. With 2 laps to go, Mark Martin appears on his way to a solid victory. But entering the carousel, Martin's car slips on some oil, giving second-place runner Dale Earnhardt the opportunity he needs, and the Intimidator takes the lead and holds off Martin for the final 2 laps of the afternoon. For Dale Earnhardt, his first career win on a road course.
I sat there behind Mark and ran a real good, smooth race, and you know, everybody that pressured me from behind just wasn't a contender. I could just take care of my tires and just move on. But Mark had really beat me off these long corners. Well, the last couple of laps, somebody threw some grease out. And that was a little deterrent, and he slipped and slid. He slipped out on the carousel, and I got under him, and that's all it took.
Well, with 10 races now complete in the 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup season, and the Chevy Monte Carlo being the dominant car, winning 8 of those 10 races, NASCAR decides to make some rule changes, giving some help to the Fords and Pontiacs by reducing the size of the rear spoiler on the Monte Carlo and raising the spoiler height for the Thunderbird and Grand Prix, thereby giving them a little more downforce, helping them especially at the big tracks like Charlotte, which is next on the schedule. But as you'd expect, the Ford drivers say it's not enough. The Chevy guys say it's too much.
A 1/4 inch of spoiler is not going to solve the world crisis, and it's just, I mean, it helps. You know, every little bit helps, but it's just not. It's not going to solve the problem.
I'm tired of really hearing about it, and I just can't believe all the crying that goes on about it. And you know, lo and behold, it changed rules again and give them more. So I don't know what's next. I guess I have to race the truck against them.
The lights of the Charlotte Motor Speedway shine brightly on NASCAR Winston Cup Racing's all-star event, the Winston Select. Perhaps the Jeff Gordon Show would be a more fitting title, as the boy wonder has the car to beat, whipping the field in the first of 3 segments. Lap 2 of segment 2. Mr. Excitement Jimmy Spencer adds a little spice to the race as he and Kenny Schrader make contact, sending both cars spinning. Dale Earnhardt is also caught up in the melee, as is Terry Labonte. After a couple of pit stops, Earnhardt, driving the silver number 3 in honor of R.J. Reynolds' 25th anniversary in Winston Cup racing, is able to continue. After inverting the field following segment 1, it only takes Gordon and his rocket ship 17 laps to get to the front again. as he holds off the field one more time, winning segment 2, bringing up another $50,000 for a total so far of $100,000 with one 10-lap segment remaining. As always seems to be the case, there's lots of excitement in segment 3, and it starts right off the bat with Darrell Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt gunning for the top spot. They team up on Jeff Gordon, passing him on both sides as they head into turn 3 with a big head of steam. But as they made their way out of 4, Earnhardt's car slips and slides right into DW's machine, forcing him into the wall. It sends the field scattering, and a total of 4 cars are out of the race. When the dust settles, it's guess who still on the point? Jeff Gordon holding off Sterling Marlin to win the Winston Select and collecting a cool $300,000 for sweeping all 3 segments. Jeff Gordon's success in the Winston Select makes him the clear favorite for the Coca-Cola 600 the following week at Charlotte. But the story is actually Gordon's lack of success. The pole sitter for the 600 falls out of contention early after he loses an entire wheel on lap 78, forcing the 24 car behind the wall to make repairs. After Gordon's demise, the lead is switched back and forth between several drivers as day becomes night. Ken Schrader appears to be the man to beat, at times dominating the field. But poor old Kenny Schrader still can't find a good luck charm that'll work. A winless streak of almost 3 years on the verge of being snapped, and his engine lets go with 42 laps remaining. All of a sudden, that gives the lead to Bobby Labonte, who comfortably cruises home to his first career NASCAR Winston Cup victory, a special achievement in its own right, but combined with the fact that his brother Terry finishes second, well, that makes things even sweeter for the brothers Labonte. Well, certainly one of the major stories in 1995 was teams getting caught with illegal parts. NASCAR's top cop, Gary Nelson, and his eagle-eyed inspectors started early, catching the Bill Davis racing team on the very first week of Speed Weeks down in Daytona.
This is the post that holds the trunk lid in place. It was hooked up to a pump in the car that the driver threw the switch on, threw a little hydraulic fluid into the line, and watch this right here. See that drop down? That dropped the deck lid on the car a ½ an inch, dropped the spoiler a ½ an inch out of the air, made the car go that much faster. Just one of several items already, although by far the most major one of several items on Gary Nelson's display table so far this weekend. Cost the Bill Davis team $25,000 and their driver another $10,000.
But don't worry, Bill, those dollars don't even compare to the fine levied against Junior Johnson. The parts police caught him with an illegal manifold and fined him $40,000. Subsequently reduced to $35,000 after appeals. Junior Johnson's fine was one of the largest ever imposed by NASCAR, but not for long. At Talladega, Ricky Rudd was caught with another trunk-lowering device. The penalty this time, $50,000. And then Jeff Gordon with an unapproved hub at Charlotte. A hub not only against the rules, but also, according to NASCAR, somewhat dangerous. And for crew chief Ray Evernham, very expensive. His fine, $60,000.
You know, it hurt confidence and whatnot, but you have to face up like a man and go on, and that's what we're doing.
All sorts of stories greet the NASCAR Winston Cup drivers at Dover Downs International Speedway. A new concrete racing surface at the Monster Mile, now named White Lightning, is very, very fast, and it provides record-shattering speed at the racetrack. And for the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, that record-setting speed provides some record-breaking headaches. After Saturday's Busch Grand National Series race, Goodyear elects to pull the tires that they have brought after several of the teams experienced severe blistering on their Goodyear Eagles. But thanks to some quick overnight work on behalf of Leo Mel and his Goodyear staff, the NASCAR Winston Cuppers have all new tires that work just fine come race day. Jeff Gordon stands up to his team's fine work, thank you, as the DuPont car captures another Busch pole. It's a short day, though, for almost half the field. John Andretti breaks loose and starts a huge wreck that eventually damages 20 cars. pole sitter Jeff Gordon holds the lead for the early part of the race. But Kyle Petty is the fastest car in the field, darting towards the front. Petty eventually takes the lead on lap 136. But Coors Light Pontiac is dominant, opening up as much as a 10-second cushion. In the late stages, Petty feels a threat from Bobby Labonte and Ted Musgrave, but he's able to hold off both of them as he picks up his first win in almost 2 years, coming all the way from his 37th starting position to collect an emotional and exhausting win. After a solid 5th place finish, Dale Earnhardt continues to pad his lead in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series point standings, now 100 points ahead of Sterling Marlin heading to Pocono, where finally Ken Schrader finds some good luck as he captures the pole for the UAW GM Teamwork 500. The news is not so good for another guy having a tough 1995. Dale Jarrett spins on lap 2, and for the second week in a row, his day is over very early. Pole sitter Schrader, like the rest of the field, spent most of his day chasing teammate Jeff Gordon, as the DuPont car is once again the class of the field. One time, Gordon even made a green flag pit stop and never lost the lead. With the field apparently battling for second, Jeff Gordon proves that even he can make mistakes. On a restart with 4 laps remaining, Gordon misses a shift and breaks the drivetrain. After a dominating performance, Jeff Gordon finishes 16th. But all is not lost for the Hendrick team, as teammate Terry Labonte inherits the lead and goes on to claim his second victory of 1995. Yet another new racing surface is the talk of the Tour when we visit Michigan for the first time in 1995, where the new pavement leads to some record speeds. And here's a real surprise. Jeff Gordon is the man with the fastest car, capturing his 7th Busch pole of the season. Ricky Rudd, the outside pole sitter, and Gordon switch the lead back and forth through the early going. Then trouble for Rudd as he and Hutch Strickland, battling for position, make some contact, sending both into the wall. Ricky takes a hard pop, and he has to be airlifted to a local hospital for a few bruises, but he's okay, just fine. With the new asphalt surface, things are very slick, with only one true lane of racing available, and it makes passing very tough. Even 7-time champion Dale Earnhardt gets into trouble, making contact with the wall in turn 3. Earnhardt falls out of the race, failing to finish for the first time in 16 races, winding up 35th. Meantime, the late duel is between Jeff Gordon and Bobby Labonte. Gordon shoots past Labonte with 16 laps left, but in the end, Labonte has the stronger horse as he gets past Gordon 4 laps later and holds him off the rest of the way, as Bobby follows up brother Terry's win at Pocono with a win of his own at Michigan in the Miller Genuine Draft 400. But the real fireworks come just after the checkered flag. Michael Waltrip lets Lake Speed know how he feels about Lake's close quarters racing. Michael later apologized, but the incident cost him $10,000. That's $5,000 a punch if you're keeping score at home. Well, the combination of Dale Earnhardt's bad finish with Sterling Marlin's 7th place effort vaults Marlin into the point lead, 6 ahead of Earnhardt and 12 in front of Jeff Gordon, as we reach halfway at the Pepsi 400 at Daytona International Speedway. Dale Earnhardt leads the field to the green flag after capturing his 2nd Busch pole of the season. The July Daytona heat was typical, with temperatures on pit road soaring to almost 140 degrees. But nothing could slow down Jeff Gordon, who leads the most laps. Mike Wallace makes things interesting with this spin late in the race, which allows the field to bunch up for a 1-lap dash to the checkered flag. Gordon puts the whip to his DuPont horses, and he's able to fend off a challenge from Sterling Marlin and Dale Earnhardt to capture his 4th win of the 1995 season at the Pepsi 400.
You know, we had a great pit stop. We lost this thing in the pits here in February, and my guys know it, but they're strong. They fought back, and they won this one for us in the pits. They got us out there first. I said, all you have to do is get me out first, and we can hold them off. I didn't want to see that caution because Earnhardt's the best there is on restarts, and luckily him and Sterling were battling back there, and we come across the finish first, man. It was awesome.
After winning the Pepsi 400, Jeff Gordon tries to become the first driver in 1995 to win back-to-back races. His chance comes at New Hampshire International Speedway. But in qualifying, Gordon doesn't have his usual success. After hitting the wall, Jeff has to resort to second-round qualifying, starting 21st as race day is approached. Meanwhile, it's Mark Martin who leads the field to the green flag for the Slick 5300. And Martin, who has the strongest car, leads the first 37 laps until Jeff Gordon and crew chief Ray Evernham decide to use a little strategy. This 8-second, two-tire stop moves Gordon from 15th to 1st. Focusing on the Winston Cup points battle, point leader Sterling Marlin starts 31st and finishes a strong 9th. Dale Earnhardt, trailing Marlin by 16 points coming to New Hampshire, has some problems on pit road. After making 2 unscheduled stops, he finishes a disappointing 22nd. As for Jeff Gordon, well, let's just say his storybook year continues as he leads New Hampshire with his 5th win of the year and the point lead as well. Gordon wins the Slick 5300, moving 35 points ahead of Sterling Marlin and collecting yet another bonus, this time $50,000 from Gatorade for leading the points at halfway through the 1995 season. Bill Elliott continues his resurgence with his new team as he captures his first Busch pole in over a season. Pocono International Raceway, the Miller Genuine Draft 500, the McDonald's Ford has the best seat in the house as race day approaches. Bill Elliott leads the first lap for him all season long. In fact, lots of laps are led by Ford drivers. In one of the most competitive races thus far this season, the lead changes hands an amazing 37 times among 13 drivers. And the man on the point for most of the afternoon is Rusty Wallace with his dominant T-Bird showing the way for 74 of the race's 200 laps. The 5th caution of the afternoon, involving 3 cars, comes out at a very opportune time with just 41 laps remaining. The leaders enter a game of fuel strategy. Unsure as to whether they can make it all the way on fuel or not, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jarrett, and Wallace switch the lead back and forth in the waning moments. 12 laps to go. Jarrett proves he has the car to beat. He slips underneath Jeff Gordon to take the lead. Then, with 7 laps remaining, Rusty Wallace is forced out of the game. He has to come in, his Miller Genuine Draft Ford running out of fuel. In the final 15 miles, Jeff Gordon can't do anything with Dale Jarrett, as months and months of frustration are finally over for Jarrett and the Robert Yates Racing Team as they break into victory lane at Pocono in the Miller Genuine Draft 500. The story at Talladega, Alabama is Sterling Marlin as he captures his first Busch pole of 1995 at the Die Hard 500. Jeff Gordon, however, has the dominant car, leading for most of the afternoon. Gordon and his teammate Kenny Schrader battling up front on lap 139. Gordon accidentally makes contact, and Kenny Schrader starts a wild ride, spinning and flipping down the long back straightaway. After the dust finally settles, 8 drivers are knocked out of the race, and amazingly, Schrader comes away with only a black eye. Teammate Gordon accepted full blame for the incident, but his car was never quite the same the rest of the day.
We just caught a little too much air over there. I don't know. I think we got turned around a little bit. Somebody caught us from the left rear. But it just took off, you know. I don't know if it took off when we hit the grass or what, but played sprint car, held on, head down, arms up.
With the field bunched up with 40 laps to go, pole sitter Marlin just flat pulls away from everybody for his 3rd win of the season. And quite a lucrative victory it is. For winning from the pole, Unical chips in an extra $121,600 to bring Sterling's total winnings for the afternoon to just over $200,000. And to boot, Sterling cuts into Jeff Gordon's NASCAR Winston Cup point lead, as does Dale Earnhardt, as we head to Indy for the Brickyard 400. If anyone wanted to use their 1995 season as a platform to prove themselves, it was definitely Sterling Marlin. He won the 1994 Daytona 500, but then came home with a disappointing 14th place finish in last season's point standings. This year, Sterling also won the Daytona 500, but that's where the comparison ends. This time around, Sterling and the Kodak Bunch followed up Daytona with several impressive runs and wins as the team turned the corner from being just average to being a serious championship contender.
Last year it was a kind of a hit and miss proposition. You know, we started off really fast, and then we had some problems during the year. He was maybe a little bit too aggressive and kept knocking the front of the car off, and just had some problems. But this year we've learned some things. We've got a good race car. He's been really smart. I think he's learned how to win.
We sat back there 14th in points last year after everything was over, and knew we had a lot better team than that, and we fell out a lot of races and hurt us, and had to stop work on stuff. So, you know, this year the team is really focused and really working hard, and it's paying off for us.
On the track, things were going awfully well, but off the track, things were not so good. Team owner Larry McClure was seriously injured in a car accident. Head engine builder Runt Pittman was injured in a boating accident. But even with all of those setbacks, the team continued to click along.
So it all happened like within a 3-week period, and you know, was fortunately none of them was hurt too bad, and it come at a bad time at Talladega, and that's when was you know, the tracks were really shine on, and went down there, and that was it run real good, but we broke 3 rock arms, and you know, just put us behind a little bit.
Of course, everything turned out just fine, as did Sterling's 1995 season, with an impressive 3 wins, including back-to-back Daytona 500s. One of NASCAR's greatest spectacles, the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis, the perfect race setting at one of racing's all-time great layouts. Oh, I'm sorry, that was last year. This year, things look a good bit more bleak. Mother Nature came to Indy sometime on Friday and didn't decide to leave until late Saturday. After a delay of almost 4 hours, the green flag falls at 4:25 in the afternoon, with hometown favorite Jeff Gordon starting from the pole. Bill Elliott, Rusty Wallace, and Dale Earnhardt all share the top spot in the early going. With 132 of 160 laps complete, Jeff Burton brings out the first caution as his Ray Bestis machine spins right in front of Wallace, but avoids any contact. Dale Earnhardt wins the race off pit road with Wallace close behind and just 27 laps to go. In the closing laps, Dale Jarrett has the fastest car, moving up to third, but that's where everybody holds their positions as Dale Earnhardt wins the second annual Brickyard 400.
I was better out front than I was behind, and when I got behind, it was push, and it just wouldn't go as good. I go out front, and it was real good. I could go better out front, so that's the place I wanted to be. We beat them out of pits there, you know, on that green flag stop, and into caution, we had track position.
For Mark Martin, it's business as usual at Watkins Glen. For the 3rd straight year, Martin sits on the Busch pole at the second and final road course race of the 1995 season. Martin dominates the race, but when Robert Presley's car stalls on the course with 29 laps remaining, some drivers can make it the rest of the way on fuel, while others can't. Martin's former teammate Wally Dallenbach, in a one-race deal with the Bill Davis Racing Team, can make it all the way, and he opens up a huge lead over the rest of the field and appears to be in good shape for pulling off a huge upset. But with 12 laps to go, oil on the track forces a caution flag, which erases Dallenbach's big cushion. 2 laps after the race restarts, Martin gets by Dallenbach and holds on to win his 3rd straight Bud at the Glen. All 3 wins coming from the pole. Mark Martin becomes the first multiple race winner for Ford in 1995.
Let me tell you something. I wanted Wally to win, but not at my expense. You know, we're really glad to win, but I would have loved to have seen Wally win. I really would have. He drove a great race, and they had a good race car.
Well, much like Watkins Glen has belonged to Mark Martin, Michigan is starting to become Bobby Labonte's track. After winning the race in June, Labonte returns to Michigan and grabs the Busch pole in August. The race is marked by an unusual amount of engine failures. Among the early retirees are Mark Martin, Dale Earnhardt, and Ted Musgrave, all in the top 5 in points. The win is decided by fuel strategy. Bobby Labonte makes a stop under caution on lap 145. Almost all of the other cars on the lead lap decide to stay out, meaning Labonte has to go 55 laps or 110 miles on 1 tank of fuel. And the longer the race stays green, more and more cars in front of Labonte have to pit for fuel. The last car to stop, Jeff Gordon, as Labonte inherits the lead and rides out the final 15 green flag laps to collect his 3rd win of 1995. The combination of Jeff Gordon's 2nd straight 3rd place finish, coupled with Dale Earnhardt's 35th place effort at Michigan, results in Gordon strengthening his hold on the top spot in the NASCAR Winston Cup point standings. Earnhardt falls all the way to 4th. Well, what a spectacular year 1995 turned out to be for Bobby Labonte. One of only 2 first-time winners this season, Labonte chalked up 3 trips to victory lane, including his Michigan sweep. And yes, his first ever career win under the lights at Charlotte.
You spend a lot of time and money at Charlotte because everybody wants to do good there. That's one of the 3 races you probably want to win. So if you're going to win any, and I think it is a great deal for all of us.
Labonte has enjoyed all of this success in only his first year with Joe Gibbs Racing. But from the beginning, owner Gibbs knew that Labonte and crew chief Jimmy Makar would be a perfect match.
I guess you could sort of relate it to a guy meeting a girl and having a girlfriend. Either you have the chemistry or you don't. And I think the same thing goes with race car drivers and crews. Either you click or you don't click, and it seems that Bobby's fit right in with us. Everybody's gotten along with him. All the guys in the shop like him. He's fit in just like he's always been here. He's belonged here.
And to make matters even better for the whole Labonte clan, in 2 of Bobby's 3 wins, it was brother Terry Labonte who finished right behind him.
The race at Charlotte over there when he won the 600 was a special day for us, and for Bobby to win his first race and I finished 2nd in it. That was a great day for us, and of all places for Bobby to win his first race, I mean, he couldn't pick a better place.
The excitement of Saturday night short track racing comes back to the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit at Bristol for the ever-exciting Goodies 500. But the rain also comes back. After a 90-minute delay, things finally get underway with Mark Martin starting from the push pole. Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace garner the early attention. Lap 31, Earnhardt tries to go underneath Wallace, and the Miller Genuine Draft Ford winds up in the wall. Wallace calls foul. Earnhardt chalks it up to short track racing, but NASCAR officials agree with Wallace as they black flag Earnhardt, sending him to the back of the pack. NASCAR officials throw the penalty flag once again 30 laps later. This time, Bobby Hamilton goes to the penalty box for 5 laps for spinning Brett Bodine twice. With all of the penalties out of the way, everything else is typical Bristol. 15 cautions resulting in 106 laps under yellow and plenty of wrinkled race cars by night's end. Up front, there were some surprises. Jeremy Mayfield leads for a good while, along with Lake Speed and Derek Cope. After making his way from the back to the front, Dale Earnhardt suffers another setback. On a restart, he tags Derek Cope when he misses a shift. With front-end damage, Earnhardt has to make several stops for repairs, setting him way behind the leaders once again. Meanwhile, Dale Jarrett has the top spot with Terry Labonte charging. 69 laps to go, the elder Labonte takes the lead for the first time as the midnight hour draws near. Just when it appeared Terry Labonte would run away with his 3rd victory of 1995, here comes old Ironhead mowing down the field on his way to the front again, this time on fresher tires. Had 12 laps to catch leader Labonte after passing 2nd place Jarrett. White flag, Earnhardt closes in a hurry. He and Labonte make contact. Labonte hits the gas, crosses the finish line, and goes sideways into the wall, but still wins. And Earnhardt, showing that championship flair, coming from the back to the front twice, finishes 2nd. But it's Terry Labonte in victory lane with what is, I guarantee you, the most torn-up race car you'll ever see win a race. A little more post-race? How about some Saturday night short track tempers? Rusty Wallace, still mad at Dale Earnhardt for their lap 31 tussle, lets Ironhead know about it. After a few heated words, both drivers cool down, take a few days off, and apologize to each other the following week at Darlington. Which leads us right to the track too tough to tame, Darlington Raceway for the Mountain Dew Southern 500, where John Andretti leads a NASCAR Winston Cup field to the green flag for the first time in his career. This time, no hard feelings between Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace as they treat the sellout crowd to some great racing, battling for the lead. 3 important accidents happen early. First, championship contender Mark Martin gets caught up in this accident. After some 50 laps of repairs in the garage, the Valvoline Ford limps home 33rd. Dale Jarrett, a serious threat for the win, finds trouble on lap 125. Any thoughts of a win go out the window for the Robert Yates Racing team. Then point leader Jeff Gordon brings out caution number 4 on lap 136. He spins and triggers a multi-car accident that includes Jeremy Mayfield, Ricky Rudd, and Jeff Burton. Gordon comes away with minimal damage. But the young Gordon shows some great patience as he fights his way back to the front, biding his time, eventually passing Hut Strickland to take the lead for good with 34 laps to go, and holding off the best veterans in the business in the form of Dale Earnhardt, who finishes second, and Rusty Wallace, who comes home third. Jeff Gordon makes a big statement by winning the Southern 500, not to mention taking a big step towards his first NASCAR Winston Cup championship.
I tell you, this team was championship caliber today, that's for sure. We had to come back from a lot of things. We had to fight. I've never really been in a battle with Earnhardt and Rusty them towards the end, and that was a great accomplishment for me and this team. But, the car was not that good at the beginning of the race, and, man, they just kept working. We were a championship caliber team today, and I'm real proud of this DuPont Chevrolet.
With Jeff Gordon's win and Mark Martin's poor finish, Gordon extends his NASCAR Winston Cup point lead to 217 over second-place Sterling Marlin. Martin drops to 4th, seemingly out of the race. The final night race of the season comes at Richmond International Raceway, with Dale Earnhardt starting from the pole, and once again, Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace thrill the sellout crowd with some great side-by-side racing. Sterling Marlin suffers a big hit in his quest for the NASCAR Winston Cup title. The Kodak Chevy having rear-end trouble, spending some 38 laps behind the wall making repairs. Sterling finishes 33rd. Rusty Wallace has the dominant car, leading 254 of the race's 400 laps, and makes the Miller Genuine Draft 400 a battle for second place as Wallace collects win number 2 of 1995. Terry Labonte wins that battle for the runner-up spot, holding off Dale Earnhardt, who comes home third. Point leader Jeff Gordon finishes 6th. And for the first time this year, Sterling Marlin fails to finish the race. And that's reflected in the point standings as Marlin drops to 3rd and Earnhardt moves up to 2nd. Rick Mast dominates the qualifying story at Dover, collecting his first Busch pole of 1995. But Jeff Gordon dominates the race. Gordon takes command early and sends a message that he wants to put away the NASCAR Winston Cup championship. The only thing that could slow Gordon was Doyle Ford's yellow flag. Dale Jarrett takes a hard lick after a tire goes down, and then something goes wrong with his steering as he goes straight into Mike Wallace. Jarrett suffers a broken rib, but otherwise he's just a little sore. Meanwhile, Gordon holds off a scrappy Bobby Hamilton, who collects his career best finish as runner-up to Jeff Gordon. Gordon dominated the MBNA 500, leading 400 of the 500 laps. He has upped his point lead to a seemingly insurmountable 309 over Dale Earnhardt, with only 6 races remaining in the 1995 season. Well, the Tuesday after Dover brings some terrific news that all racing fans have been waiting for. Ernie Irvan announces his intention to return to racing 13 months after his horrible accident at Michigan. At the press conference, Irvan lays out the plan for 2 NASCAR Super Truck Series races, Martinsville, and then the following week at North Wilkesboro. Then his first Winston Cup race, the Tyson Holly Farms 400, also at North Wilkesboro.
In some ways, I'm starting my career over again, but in a lot of ways, I'm really not, It's just going to be a matter of just being able to go out and try to do the job I can do before, like I was doing before, If I can't, then, hopefully it'll be somewhat close to it, and it's just going to take some time.
But Mother Nature had her say as rain washed out Super Truck qualifying at Martinsville. Irvin, with no points, didn't have a spot in the field, so he has to go home and wait one more week.
Well, basically it's really hard to stomach, but, been doing a lot of testing, and we'll just consider this another test. And, it doesn't really affect next week's plans. Basically we're going to go to Wilkesboro and do everything we have already decided, try to run the trucks and then also try to run the Winston Cup race. And we'll have at least one race in as far as with the truck before the race in Wilkesboro.
Not only did the rain cancel Ernie Irvin's Martinsville comeback plans, but it also canceled qualifying for the Goodies 500, giving Jeff Gordon his 8th push pole of 1995 by virtue of leading the NASCAR Winston Cup points. Scary moment early on. Ted Musgrave and Robert Presley get together, and Musgrave almost jumps the inside retaining wall. And after all that, Musgrave walks away, although a bit angry at Presley, who eventually apologizes. Dale Earnhardt dominates the race. In fact, his car is so good, he drives most of the race with his right arm propped up on the roll bar, just having fun and seemingly toying with the rest of the field. On the final pit stop of the afternoon, Rusty Wallace elects to take no tires. Earnhardt takes 2. And with 8 laps to go, the fresher tires prevail as the Intimidator slides underneath Wallace and goes on to win his 4th race of the 1995 season. And the 7-time champ sends a message of his own. It's not over yet.
The car worked good. We got 2 tires that last stop, and that was the key to beating them out. And Terry had better tires, but he just couldn't. He couldn't work them. And I was wondering about getting by Rusty, but I just saved my tires and was patient and kept working on him. Finally, he started slipping, and I got under him, and it was all it took.
A week of patient waiting pays off for thousands of NASCAR fans as Ernie Irvin takes his first green flag in over 13 months at the Lowe's 150 NASCAR Super Truck race at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. It didn't take long for Irvin, the outside pole sitter, to charge to the front as he takes the lead from Mike Skinner. But as quickly as Irvin shot to the point, he started going backwards as the handling goes away on his Super Truck. In fact, that problem would knock the team out of the race. An attempted change to solve the handling woes at the halftime break didn't work, and Ernie Irvin sat out the second half of the race. But he was back in the world of NASCAR, doing what he loved, racing.
Well, we probably tried to do too much on the halftime, trying to make the truck better, and just didn't get it done. And, probably going to take another 10 minutes to get it right. So, and we'll just have another day.
Now all of this leads to Ernie's big return, back behind the wheel of a NASCAR Winston Cup car as Irvin starts 6th for the Tyson Holly Farms 400. And as they say, who would have thunk it? After staring death in the face just 1 year ago, Irvin was back just where he wanted to be. And nobody knows that better than Ernie's wife, Kim. Ernie Irvin's comeback did somewhat overshadow Ted Musgrave's first Busch pole of the 1995 season. His teammate Mark Martin starting right alongside. The most exciting moment of the race, however, came on lap 125 when Ernie Irvin takes the lead in a NASCAR Winston Cup race for the first time in over 13 months. Controversy towards the end of the race as Ricky Rudd leaves the pits. A NASCAR Winston Cup official spots a loose lug nut on the right front of the tied Ford. Rudd, arguably the class of the field, is forced to come back on a pit lane to tighten the loose lug nut, potentially costing him the race. Mark Martin, the leader at the last restart, holds off Rusty Wallace and makes it win number 3 of the 1995 season. His best friend, Ernie Irvin, finishes 6th, but tastes of victory in his own right.
I kind of saved it early because I always burn up the rear tires, Today I was going to try to save it. The car was there. You could run it hard and it still would stay under me. So, after about halfway, we started letting the hammer down.
Definitely. I mean, our main concern is getting ready for next year. And, if the next race calls for that, then we'll figure it out. We got to be competitive every place we go. And, it's a deal that we'd love to go to every race, but, just got to make sure we got all the equipment ready to do it.
Things don't look so good for Dale Earnhardt as we head to Charlotte. Not only is the Intimidator trailing Jeff Gordon by over 300 points, but he also has to start from dead last after using a former champion's provisional just to make the starting field. But it doesn't take Earnhardt long to get to the front. Lap 38, he takes second place from the would-be champ. Earnhardt with a strong car. Gordon then has trouble. On a routine stop, the drivetrain brakes as Gordon tries to leave the pits. Then while pushing the car behind the wall, Gordon runs into the barrier. Gordon spends 14 laps behind the wall making repair. Late in the race, Hendrick teammate Terry Labonte takes the lead on the strength of a two-tire stop. But Mark Martin just dares Labonte to pull away. Martin chases him down with 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. He takes the lead with 5 laps to go and holds on for the win, his second in a row. Earnhardt also passes Labonte to finish second. Gordon, meanwhile, winds up 30th as the Intimidator makes up 97 points as we head to Rockingham with the championship still in question. There is, however, one thing that's for sure. Rockingham is the week for the young guys. Hut Strickland gets his first ever Busch pole with Michael Waltrip alongside for the start of the AC Delco 400. The class of the field is Rick Mast, leading 139 of the first 257 laps. But during a routine stop under caution, the Skoll crew goes straight under the hood. Mast is victimized once again by engine failure. He finishes 34th. Controversy towards the end of the race. A Winston Cup official calls Dale Earnhardt back onto pit road for a missing lug nut. After a quick look, the officials see that all 5 lug nuts are in fact in place on the wheel. The stop moves Earnhardt from 6th to 14th, 1 lap down. Seeing their mistake, NASCAR opted to make corrections. On lap 372, the caution is displayed with the specific purpose of getting Earnhardt his lap back. But with pit road closed, NASCAR sees Earnhardt and others beginning to pit. 4 new tires and then the rest of the teams will cry foul. So NASCAR has to allow the other teams to pit as well. After everybody pits, NASCAR officials straighten everything out by having everyone revert back to their original position on the racetrack, with Ward Burton in the lead and Rusty Wallace second. Then Burton holds off Wallace for the final 15 laps to pick up his first ever career win. In just his 7th start for the Bill Davis Racing Team, Ward Burton wins the AC Delco 400. Jeff Gordon finishes a disappointing 20th at the Rock, while Dale Earnhardt finishes 7th. The 7-time champ gains 43 more points on Gordon as we head into the next to the last Winston Cup race of the season in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's Bill Elliott who's captured his second Busch pole of 1995 for the Duralube 500. After wrecking his primary car in practice, Ernie Irvan looks strong in the mid-stages of the race in his backup car as he leads for 111 consecutive laps, having some great battles with Dale Earnhardt, stirring up some terrific memories for the sellout crowd at Phoenix International Raceway. Irvin, though, eventually falls out of contention after dropping a cylinder. Late in the race, with Derek Cope leading, Ricky Rudd sweeps by to take the top spot on lap 290, as Rudd goes on to lead the final 23 circuits and wins the Duralube 500, extending his consecutive win streak to at least 1 win for 13 years in a row. Dale Earnhardt finishes 3rd. Jeff Gordon 5th as the Intimidator picks up a scant 15 points. But all Jeff Gordon has to do at Atlanta is finish no worse than 41st, and the 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship would be his. Darrell Waltrip surprises everyone by capturing his first Busch pole in over 2 years for the Napa 500. Lap 61, leader Sterling Marlin pulls onto pit road during green flag pit stops, and the second place man, Jeff Gordon, inherits the lead, giving him 5 bonus points as he clinches the 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. But the dominant car all afternoon is Dale Earnhardt, even though Gordon later developed handling troubles and finished 34th, 14 laps down. Earnhardt's commanding performance, in which he led 268 of the 328 laps, wasn't enough, as Earnhardt wins the battle, but Jeff Gordon wins the war.
You know, I got to congratulate Rick Hendricks and all his team. They did a great job. He's due a championship, Rick is. He's been in a long time. I tested for him when he first started building cars, so I sort of feel good for him. And, you know, our teams are the best. Good Ranch Service and RCR, they've done it again. Old race car was good today.
Jeff Gordon wins the NASCAR Winston Cup title by just 34 points over Dale Earnhardt. Sterling Marlin overtakes Mark Martin for third place, with Rusty Wallace rounding out the top 5. Terry Labonte has another strong second half and finishes 6th, with brother Bobby Labonte hanging on to finish in the top 10. But for Jeff Gordon, it was a spectacular year, winning the title in only his 3rd year on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. For a young man who has achieved an awful lot in a short time, this was a very emotional day.
The Winston Cup championship is just the ultimate thing, and now here I am achieving it, and it's too good to be true, but I know it's reality, it's happening, but it's like there are no words to describe what it feels like to be able to achieve this goal. It's unbelievable.
Several times during the season, this team could have given up, but the crew, nicknamed the Rainbow Warriors, well, they just don't know the meaning of quit. First, that non-approved hub at Charlotte, but still they rallied to capture the pole shortly thereafter at Dover. Then, following a wreck during qualifying at New Hampshire, Gordon comes from 21st starting position to win the race. And at Darlington, Gordon battled an ill-handling race car all day long, only to come back and win the Southern 500. For Jeff Gordon and his crew, this 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup championship is very well deserved.
It couldn't have been any sweeter than to race Dale Earnhardt for a championship. I mean, you know, he's the greatest Winston Cup driver out there. I think the greatest driver I'll ever race against. And you know, to be able to you know, keep him from winning his 8th championship, it makes it a lot more special. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I really mean that in a very, very positive way.
So it's been a long, grueling season in which Jeff Gordon and his crew battled with the best veterans in the business and won. Jeff Gordon, though, says this championship is one he'll remember forever, one that he'll never take for granted.
I never, ever would have guessed in a million years I mean, even my whole career, I mean, I could be 40 years old, winning my first Winston Cup championship, racing Winston Cup for 20 years, and I would be saying, this is the greatest, you know? And so here it is 3 years, and I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know what to do next, you know? But it's something that we're going to enjoy right now, and something that's great to think about for the rest of the year.
Well, it all came down to this bone-chilling, blustery November the 12th here in Atlanta, Georgia. A long way from back in Daytona Beach when that jack problem had Jeff Gordon derailed early in the year, playing catch-up from the month of February on. But it all ends here today with his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup Series championship, the second youngest driver to ever grab the NASCAR title. We hope you've enjoyed our look back at the 1995 season. It's been a great year. 1996 looms just ahead with better racing than ever before. So long, everybody.
Miami or down in Daytona.